Sh- Good night, good night, good night. Share the live, share the live, share the live. Good night to you all. Share the live. Share the live, share the live, share the live, share the live. Share the live to those who are now joining. Share the live. Welcome to you all to this, the Dr. Matthews-Bey show. So share the live, share the live. Share the live, share the live. Good evening, good night. Share the live. Share the live, share the live. Good night. Good night to you. Share the live on air. Share the live. Share the live. Good night to you once again. Share the live. Share the live once again. Share the live. Good night. Good night. Good night to you. Good night to you. Islam, my Moors. Islam to you. Islam. Islam. Good night. Good night once again. Good night to you. To those who are now joining, a very pleasant good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon to whichever part of the world you're joining. Islam to you, my Moors, my Moorish brothers and sisters. Islam to you. Islam, Islam. Okay, so we're going to start tonight with just a few steps. The conversation continues. Welcome to you all, to those who are now joining via this live stream. Good night to you who are joining via the GMS Live Radio Guyana. This is Dr. Matthews Bay coming to you once again. Good evening, good night, good morning, good afternoon to whichever part of the world. Islam to you, Moors Islam. Today was a cool, quiet, comfortable day, and I thought that I may enforce the Constitution by doing a few things, and one of them is by having a conversation of self. So as you now join, share the live stream. Share the live stream to those who are joining now. Share the live stream. Uh, I had a few thoughts on what I wanted to talk about tonight. And one of them is based upon finance. Hold on. One of them is based upon finance. And I said to myself, to those who would be joining constantly to comprehend or to tune into, you know, what I wanted to say. It's something that has been on my mind a bit. It seems to me that every time you turn around today, there is a there's a deep understanding and misunderstanding, as a matter of fact, deep concentration, if I may correctly put it, upon finance. And apparently, if there's no finance, the world doesn't go wrong, or a relationship doesn't start somewhat or the other. A person doesn't have a good standing in society. If you really comprehend what is finance, some of you wouldn't study at all to talk about finance in general. Some of you wouldn't study if you comprehend what I'm saying. Very first thing to say is that we see in the world today that the worth of money is running out. Believe you me. There are people who now are comprehending that money has no value because there's too much of millionaires and billionaires. There's a lot. Although it's a small percentage, it's a lot. Because here why? People get to comprehend how to make money very quickly these days. And when I have too much, you have too much, people are now starting to have too much. At the end of the day, you realize that there are a lot of us, and what makes us so special? Because we can afford to buy a car and a house. There's too much financial resources going around. So the value of money is getting smaller. And then the stature of how the wealthy or the rich wants to attain is diminishing because people get to realize that they're a bunch of joke. Because hey, I got the same thing you got. You might got it more than me, but I can afford it. What's his stature? Then they realize in order to remain rich or in order to remain wealthy, there are those who have to remain ignorant in order for them to wake up and go to work. You see, the less ignorant you become is the more you realize that the society you're living in or the system you're living in is a complete joke. What happens after then is that everything be out of control. Even to the same people who created the system can't even control it now. Because there's a lot of people like themselves now way beyond their comparison, way beyond the wealth gauge that wants some stature in life, and everybody's looking for it. But we're gonna turn the page over to the community of people that are in distress and oppressed again. So we get to comprehend that life is not what we think it is. Good night to those who are now joining, share the live stream. We get to comprehend that life is not what we think it is. The system is so shuffling itself over and over to create a point of distress, to put you in distress, that distress mode, that you need to have more. And in every relationship you get into, it's a need to have more. It's a need to find so I can get. There's no need to build. There's a need to find so one can get. One can work and the other one receives. And then there's a comprehension of that is love. I was talking to an individual today and they say, I don't know how you see it, which they're talking to me, they're responding to me. But they said to me, explain to me how can I look past life without money? And I said to them, okay, let's make a simple example. Did you have to pay to come into the world? He said, no, not really. I said, did they have to pay to come into the world? He said, no. I said, but when you come into the world, you got to pay to live. He said, well, yes, he's been paying taxes and all these things. I said, okay, hold on. Look up the etymology of the word debt. Debt as in not DEPTH, depth or debt, or how we pronounce it, and credit. We search the words and we find the etymology of it and we discuss the etymology of debt and credit. Death, not the word like when you die, debt or death, owing someone a level of debt. They only give you the simple meanings, but when you check the etymology of the word, the system owes you instead of you owe the system. This is the reason why. When you're born with three inalienable rights: the right to life, liberty, and property. When your parents would have signed you over to the system now invests in your rights, the right to life, liberty, and property. They invest in your life by trading you on the stock market. Yes. The right to liberty, it is whatever comes out of your mouth. It is your freedom, but they restrict that freedom from you because of the level of education. And the right to property is to make sure that you abandon those rights. So instead of you going and acquire a property that you're expected to, you have to now approach them so they now find a way where you have to pay to acquire your property. Yes. So in other words, you ever hear about the housing market? They make sure they find the land, they build a house, and they sell it to you. Here, what's the trick? You go to borrow a loan to buy a property or a piece of land. When you go to the bank is already an insurance company. Don't be fooled. The bank is already an insurance company. What happens in your loan? Let us say you want a loan of $20 million. 20 million to purchase a piece of property. The bank approves your loan. That means your worth is 20 plus $1 million, not $20 million. The plus is the debt. The debt, it is how long you live before paying out the worth of the loan. Yes, it is how long you live before completing repaying that loan. Now, this is the tricky part of it, and you don't know. For every time you borrow money, the debt or the interest on the money they call the debt, you don't know about it. You know the interest that if you fail to pay, or this is the interest on the money by the time you finish paying. But the investment on the debt is where the bank makes their money. The investment is you. The more longer you live to repay that loan, it is better for the bank. The bank makes interests on you. That's your life. So even if you fail to pay the debt, they already invest in you. I can show you a simple example. To those who are living in Guyana, Quartz is one of them. Yes, Quartz, the giant, the furniture giant that you go and take out your bed, your fridge, your gas stove, all these things. Quartz is an insurance company. That's why when they call you to tell you come take part in the bargains we got, pay $1 down. The minute you sign that contract, Quartz already got back their item. The day you sign that contract and you pay down that dollar, they make their money back because it's an insurance company. They already insured their appliances on your life. So they already make it back. And a lot of us don't know. That's the debt. And even if you die, it's written off because remember they already make back that money. Why do I sound in this manner? Because at the end of the day, money has no value without you. You're the purpose that money has the value in. But they turn it around and they tell you money has the value and you don't. Let me show you a simple example. Let's use Banks DIH as an example. It's a multi-billion dollar company. If every worker in Banks DIH refused to go to work for 1 week, would it still be regarded and seen as a multi-billion dollar company? No, it has no worth because there's no workforce behind the work. So it's the same thing around the world. How can how can you develop strength without the workforce? How can the dollar be the dollar without the workforce? It can't. You have to have people who are willing to go to work or willing to apply themselves to the job. The job means oppression. In order for the value of the dollar to rise. So when you go to take that loan, that is the only way the dollar has a value. That is the only way that the bank can say, well, look, yes, I'm $20 million stronger because you came and take that loan out. There are different levels of oppression where money is concerned. There's a bank level, and the bank now, here what the bank can do, the bank can refuse to give you a loan and create a more level of oppression so the worth of the dollar of that company can gain more strength. There are different levels of oppression. Finance, they call it. Different level. Remember, the corporation that you live in is based upon commerce. And the corporation can only develop based upon commerce. That is why the commerce is you. Without you, there's no strength, and they're not going to tell you that. But they're going to create a situation for you that the only way you can survive is based upon finance. The only way you can have a good marriage is based upon finance. The only way that you can have a good relationship and you can be happy is based upon finance. That's what they will tell you. And they're not only telling you that, they're making it a reality. You never know. People say the harder you work is the more you gain. What are you gaining? The harder you work, the more you deteriorate. Look at the people who work hard. Their bodies deformed. They go through a lot of aches and pains. They trouble from things like cancer and diabetes and different ailable things they trouble from. It is not really what you think it is. It's a workforce of enslavement. Everything you gotta work and pay for. Even to sleep, you gotta pay for it. Don't you want a roof over your head? You gotta work hard for it. But you fail to realize that you can build it on your own. But no, we want someone else to build it for us. So they present a market for it, which is commerce. Some of us don't want to exercise, so they design the bike. And from the bike, they design the motorbike. And from a motorbike, they design the motor car. Years ago, to come to Georgetown was a 3-day journey before it became civilized because you had to walk. That was a travel. You had to camp out before you meet to Georgetown. Now you can meet to Georgetown in the space of seconds. What happens after that? Most of us now suffer from a whole heap of uh, ailments because our refuse to exercise. We don't walk anymore, we drive. So the body lacks the exercise, the heart now lacks the exercise to keep pumping the blood. You sit too long, too many hours per day, and eventually you start to deteriorate because of the lack of exercise, the lack of movement. And let me show you something how it makes it harder for us when we don't know. The more vehicles in the road is the more gas emission it burns. The more the atmosphere is polluted, the more we cannot breathe clean air. Air condition is not clean air, it's refrigerated dispersion of air. When we breathe it in and we breathe it out, it takes away some level of survival mode from us. It reduces it reduces the time in which we face on this earth, our lifespan. Everything that we partake of this system takes away from us. Check it. We work hard for the money, it takes away our lifespan. We can't even enjoy the retirement. We work so hard. Sometime at the age of retirement is 55 or 60, we die because we cannot afford to survive. Our body was so beaten. Then we say we leave our richness for our children, fine. But they themselves can't enjoy it because they have to have people working to multiply their riches. That means they have to invest because they make no sense. Where you invest in, you got to invest because the money can't remain the value. You can't see the value for it, which is called finance, which is commerce. So the system invests upon your inalienable rights in order to create finance, oppression, labor, however you want to put it, that's it. But that's the fact. So while I was explaining this to my friends who were TDC listening to me. They say, well, if not work for money, what is the real value of things? I said, do you know why they erased bartering? Because bartering was the real value of things. That was a lawful currency. Whatever you trade for an exchange of some other thing, that is the lawful currency. And what you trade is what you work hard for. What you work hard for. Not the dollars and the paper money with the ink what somebody making in the bottom house, you know. That is not the lawful currency. The lawful currency is what comes from the earth, like the gold and the silver. That's the lawful currency. Because you would have had to put in extreme labor to extract that from the earth. So that now is required the lawful currency because somebody mightn't got a goat, they mightn't got a pig, they mightn't got a cow, but they got some gold or they got silver. That was the lawful currency. And why do I say that's a lawful currency? Because it has a it doesn't have a short time period like how the dollars, the paper money has a short time period. It could only last for a couple of months and you have to renew it constantly. They have to go and print more. With the gold and silver, you ain't got print more. It remains in the family. It is the worth. You trade with it. It's bartering. It's either I pay you or you pay me for the stuff. Or if I don't have gold and silver, well, we can barter. I give you a few head of cow or a few head of camels for a particular item. That's how they live. That's how we live too. But these things can only be valuable as long as you are alive. As long as you are alive. I'm talking about the currency. Where the gold and silver is, you can die and it still has value. You can refuse to work and the gold and silver still has value. But you can refuse to work, but the money ain't got no value. Simple. Let me show you something. Listen to what they say. If there's a strike, the country lose what? Billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, because there's nobody working to carry through the cycle of the strength of the dollar. It goes in a circle. Nobody's working. If there's nobody working, then there's nobody going to work. There's nobody buying anything. So what happened? The economy shuts right down, which is simple. Commerce. If nobody's going to work, no car is driving, nobody's accessing the transportation sector, nobody's going into the stores to buy anything. Commerce shut right down, and it's no good. It's worth nothing. So then, what's the use of the money if it's worth nothing? The use of the money is nothing. But they don't want you to know that. They want you to know that life surrounds itself by money. If you don't have money in your pocket, you can't get a girlfriend. If you don't have money in your savings, you can't have a wife. If you don't have money at all, well, your family can't survive because nobody wants to work the toil, till the soil to grow the stuff and eat off of their own strength. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody wants to sit down and send somebody in the market with some cash to buy what they need and come back. Nobody wants to walk and go around the corner because there's a car parked downstairs in the yard. Nobody wants to exercise because nobody has time for that. Nobody wants to. Make sure that they find the proper food to eat because it's being sold in a supermarket in a can on a shelf. But everything surrounds the commerce, the system that we live by. It takes away our lives. It takes from our lives, as a matter of fact. There's no value from these things. You gain no value from it. So what happens? We're all being lied to. We're living in an epiphany of a persuasion of another individual. Take my word. Change the currency of in which you exchange goods and services. Start doing it by gold and silver. Everybody. You're spending the Guyanese currency. See what's gonna happen after that. The Bank of Guyana would cease to exist because you are the bank. It can't function because there's no more exchange of goods and services by currency. Let's use common sense. If there's just gold and silver being traded for services and items in the corporation of Guyana, the dollar will cease to exist. It has no value anymore. So all them fancy billionaires that you got would cease to exist. They becomes the normal person, which they are all the time. They just got a few dollars more. And don't hesitate, they are also trading gold and silver because they know the value of it. But to keep you blinded by the currency, because that's all you have to work for. That's all that you wake up and see every morning because of commerce. The currency is commerce. You fail to work or you fail to be a part of the commerce in society, well, sorry for you. You got to hit the back bench. Some of us, we can't afford to take it because we can't think. Why do I talk on this topic tonight? Simple. Go into the interior, look at those who live outside of the system. They don't trade on commerce. They don't trade on the worth of money. They're not part of the civilized movement of a people. They're not enslaved by a system, but they're surviving. You check. You come to work into the system. You're working so hard, you got sick. Suddenly, you realize that the medication you're taking can't help you. You know what happens after that? They go back home to where they came from because they know the horrible medication that they used to see work will work. I can tell you that. So why come and be a part of the civilized? I call them civilized slaves. If you know that this is not going to work out for you, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't work out for anybody. What are you gaining from it? Too much money, too much people in the world, too much people who are getting conscious now. You call it a civilized revolution movement. Too much people are becoming conscious. You know what? Now the system is paying farmers not to grow the food. Don't grow your food by because we got to create a level of starvation so we can have the value of the dollar back because they're losing the value of the dollar. Imagine 2 years ago, Bitcoin was illegal. So it used to be traded on the black market because it was illegal. Now, Bitcoin is legal. They got a factory, Bitcoin factory, Bitcoin factories around the world. You call it tech mining, where they're investing in you to go on your computer, take up your time, and invest in people's illusion. That's what you call it. Bitcoin mining. Because you're in the technology, the tech world. Take away all of that. See what you're left with. See what's the real value. They always try to replace the gold and silver for years, but it still works. They cannot take away the value. That's why they are the largest. Uh, the Bank of England, or the Queen of England, or England itself, the royal family, and the US, the Canadians, the Europeans, and Australia. You look, the strength and the wealth of their dollar is based upon their gold reserves. And they still ain't got most of the gold in the world. They claim to have they claim to have the largest gold reserve in the world, but they still, because they still got more gold. They can't mine all of it. They still got more gold down there. They still got, as I say, that's the real currency. Gold and silver. 99.9% pure gold and silver. That's the true currency. That's the legal currency. So the reason why that conversation is here tonight, because I want to tell you there's going to become a time when they ain't got nothing on the shelves to buy. They are going to come. That time is coming. Food is going to be a scarce commodity because they're already paying farmers not to grow but to destroy the food. So food is becoming a scarce commodity. And the money that you gonna got ain't gonna worth nothing because you can't buy nothing. The wars that they got around the world is based upon the World Trade Organization. They are already seeing that, well, look, we got to reduce the population on the planet. Too many people working, too many cash floating around the place. So billionaires can't afford to become billionaires anymore. The wealth can't grow between the 1% of those on earth because a lot of people are becoming wealthy. So it can't work because the value of the money is decreasing. Simple example. Let me show you what's going on. Look at Venezuela right next door to us. Right next door to us. They put an environment in the country, they ban all the kind of foods that go into Venezuela to feed their population. What happens? There's now a rush for survival, survival for the fittest. People doing all sorts of things to eat just a meal when the day come. To buy a loaf of bread is actually $3 million. That's the worth now of simple items just to eat. And you can't find the money to pay for it because how you can get 3 million Venezuelan dollars from. Number one, they can't get it because they can't print it. You can't print it because most of the food stuff is not grown, it's being imported. So the dollar has no value. So what they got to do now is come across your countries like Brazil and Guyana and Suriname, Colombia. When you have refugees of that magnitude, then you got all sorts of things start springing up. Slave market, sex market, maid market, all kind of things start springing up because people now got to trade themselves to survive. Not forgetting that that's the worth of the dollar. It's you. Without you, the dollar ain't gotten strength. But they're never going to tell you that. They ain't gonna tell you that the dollar ain't gonna do it. They're gonna tell you, man, look, you gotta work more hard and you gotta save up your money and you gotta do all sorts of things to survive. But they're not going to tell you because of you who are alive, the dollar has the strength. So credit and debt belongs to you. You're the credit and the debt. It is your life. If you're living, well, you ain't got no credit and you ain't got no debt. The banks can't make the money. The business owners, the entrepreneurs can't make money because it has to revolve among living beings in order for the money to become what it is. So you got to work more hard. And the more hard you work, is the more less you gain. The more money I gain. That's the fact. Check it. The more hard you work, is the less you gain. You could imagine. You gotta wake up and work for nothing because you tell yourself that you got nothing. You have something. It's the life that you have that is important. But they're not going to tell you that they're trading upon the air that you breathe in, that life that you have. That's how the world goes wrong. That's how the stock market keeps up. It's because the life that you have is the more people that is working for the paperback money, it's the better for them. But the less paperback money you got, is the better for them also too. So you work more and you earn less. Now you imagine it's actually a slave market. Because it's what used to happen. It's just that in those days you never used to get paid nothing. You just work all the time. Work, 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 work. All the time. The more slaves the master has, the more richer he is. Because he doesn't have to pay you a thing. So the wealth gap just continues all the time. People like JP Morgan and all of them, those big financial companies. Yes, sir. Yes, to the people who are looking. That's the fact. I can't help it. I could only explain the facts to you. Fast forward now to Guyana, the corporation of Guyana. Ask yourself, $500+ billion were passed in a budget. Just ask yourself the question. $500+ billion, right? How many people we got living in Guyana? 750,000. Let me do some mathematics now. Out this 700, this where the Guyana Registrar Office would have given out 750,000 people. That's the population of Guyana. The workforce is 450,000. It can't go more than that. The same workforce is the voting population. 450,000. If you give Guyanese $1 million each, 1 million, that's 450 million Guyana dollars, right? You pass a budget for 500 billion, 10 times the amount of the population. Are my mathematics wrong? It's either cockroach in me head eating out me brains. Check it. You got a population of a working force. That means legal aged adults. That's the working force. A population of 450, a working population, 450,000. At a million each, it's 450 million. No, I'm making the wrong calculations. Not four, more, it's more than 450 million. My apologies. It's more than 450 million. But if you give them a million each, check. Can't we afford it? You pass a budget in parliament that surpasses the working population, and you give most of that money to the business community that has less the workforce, which is 10,000. Let us say 12,000. Let us say 10,000, 12,000. You give the business community all of that money in contracts. Even if they employ Guyanese and pay them a proper wage, they still gonna make it. And people are suffering. People are making it. It's hard for people to pay bills today. And you got $450 billion running around the place. Man, there's a high level of thievery. There's not corruption. There's con. That's conning the Guyanese public, taking away not only the rights but the money in which you pass a budget based upon their lives. Look at it. Ask yourself the question. 450 billion. You can imagine you building schools, right? And you can't pay teachers properly. Which is sense build schools. Which is sense building buildings that you call schools and furnishing them. And you cannot give a teacher a proper salary. Ask yourself the question. Which is sense building more police stations. And you can't give a policeman a proper wage. You are still working for 400 US dollars a month. Whilst you are spending twice that amount every day. Ask yourself the question really, who is profiting? The people? People profiting, people losing. And they're not only losing the capability of finance themselves, they're losing their lives. They're so stressed out. They cannot afford to see tomorrow because they don't know what tomorrow brings. Then you ask, why is the reason that I will sit here and explain the etymology of life to the people? Then you complain. Then you want to block the shows. Then you want to reduce those who look at the government, the Dr. Matthews-Bey show, because you're saying the things that you don't want them to comprehend. You want them to sit down and laugh at someone and feel nice when you say jagabats, these cockroaches. You want those things. So the less they become educated is the more for you, because they wouldn't understand what they're worth. Sometime or the other have to be told what you're worth. You're worth more than what Guyanese, I don't know if you're listening, but you're worth more than what you're being given. Far more than what you've been given. Ask yourself the question. Am I making sense? Am I am uh am I not really seeing things the way it's supposed to be? Ask yourself the question. Why it's a big secret not to pay me more? Why it's not a big secret not to allow me to enjoy life? Work for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Why it's only between a certain particular sector of people or between a particular interests of people? Why can't you just benefit the same things that they're getting? And you're frustrated because you don't know the answer because they never teach you the answer. They will never put you to sit down and tell you the truth of the matter. They will never tell you, well, they will always tell you that you're in debt. Always. You can't find the money, but you got to borrow more money. You're always in debt. And they will tell you that and they will keep preaching that. But they don't want you to know it's based upon your life. It is because you are alive that is the worth of the dollar. They're not going to tell you that. They would never want you to comprehend that. Believe you me. They would never ever want you to comprehend the part. They will always want you to be remain blinded to the fact. Ask yourself, look at the question, what is debt? What is interest? What is credit? I can only credit you something based upon your life. If you're not alive, I can't credit you it. I can't lend you money if you're not alive. How can I lend a dead person money? The money is based upon your life. If you have gold and silver and you die, you're still worth much more. But if you got money and you die, you aren't worth a thing. You don't have any legacy. Legacy is not built upon the hard-earned cash that they talk about. It's built upon common sense and the worth of life. Your inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and property. That's your legacy. That's what you're worth. That is your empire. And your empire is built upon that. So by explaining that to them, then they say, so what's the difference from you and him? And I said, because the word Bey, B-E-Y, goes back to the ownership, the title of the land, the ownership of the land in which I am on. They can't take that away from me. Every investment now they got to consult. And the only way to do that is by highlighting the issue, bringing it to them, let them know that you know the truth. And it's time you being paid royalty. They don't want that. Oh no, they don't want that. What you're saying, Mr. Matthews, is not the right thing. Don't tell people that. Don't tell people that they could go proclaim themselves and be free of the corporation of Guyana so they can become a free man, so they can live their inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and property. And commerce, by investing, has to pay those people because of their title that they own to the land, that they have to the land, which is B. Don't tell them that, Mr. Matthews. Yes, you have to know. And there's only one set of people can have that kind of titleship. I'm sorry for the rest. So those who came here and has an entry date, well, kudos to you. But those who were born here, never came here as slaves, who has thousands of history, thousands of years of history to the land, are far better off. Because now the commerce, the system that is that survives based upon commerce has to now give you those allodious rights. Yes, to acknowledge your allodious rights to the land. What is land has different meanings. Ownership to the land, what it means. One of them is being a Moor. To be a Moor is to own, to have rights to the land. That's the meaning. Moor. And the Bey is a title. That's why every time I sign into Bey. Because you have to be recognized that I have ownership, entitlement to the land in which you are on, that you have no rights to. The gold and silver is my lawful currency. Same thing for those who want to acknowledge the truth and live by it. You check it. Look at these things that they talk about. $100 million for a fancy car, Rolls Royce or Rolls Royce. Without the money, it has no value. The car is just there. Look at it. Without the money, the car ain't got no value. Everybody stop work, they ain't got no Rolls Royce driving around. It's worth nothing. It becomes a sounding brass and a tingling cymbal. So is the airplane. If nobody in traveling the plane to go from continent to continent, it's worth nothing. It can worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But if nobody in traveling it, if it's not working, it's worth nothing. If you're going to work to open up the laptop to turn on the computer, that itself it's worth nothing. No matter how much money they say it costs, without the human being or the life of the living soul, not the human being, the life of the living soul, which is you and I, all these things are a sounding brass and a tingling cymbal. Even into the scriptures that you read, when Solomon was describing himself, he said, with all this lust, vanity, it just becomes lustation of the flesh. It's a sounding brass and a tingling cymbal. It worth nothing. All this big fame, without the money, it's nothing. All the big fancy cars and a big fancy house, it's worth nothing if nobody living in it. Imagine you got a bed, you got a house with 15 bedrooms and with 20 toilets. Look at the craziness. You got a house with a 15 bedroom and 20 toilets, and you don't have the family huge enough to live in that. What happens? You could only live in one bedroom at a time. It deteriorates after a while. The house becomes worthless. If you have a family that size, yes, no problem. It's useful. But if you're alone living in it, especially if you're alone as a bachelor, I don't understand how it's worth anything. It's worthless because it's not occupying the living souls. You just buy it because of fame. Oh, yes, I have a 15 bedroom house and 20 toilets. Two of them is gold. What's the sense? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Commerce is dead. Without you, commerce has no meaning. Civilization is dead. Without you, there's no civilization. Without you, there's nobody to rule, there's nobody to govern. If much as if you come out of the system, who are you governing? Ask yourself the question. If everybody decide to become an aboriginal indigenous person, in Guyana, the corporation of Guyana. Well, then there's no Guyana after that. There's no boundaries. There's no country. The country depends upon the people who are alive and attached to the system, enslaved to the system, which is the corporation. That's the country. Without people, they ain't got no country. If everybody decide to wake up tomorrow morning and say, look, I'm not Guyanese anymore, they ain't got no country, they ain't got no president. Who here fraud is going to govern? God govern itself. But you see, we need to comprehend the etymologies of things and what is the meaning of it and why are we living this kind of life? Why is it so important to understand the etymologies of things? Why is it important? It's to bring you back to reality. Without you, the living souls, the system cannot function. It definitely can't. Without you, the living souls, the system cannot function. Sorry to say that, but that's the fact. And they're going to work overtime to make sure that the system can't function. They're going to work overtime to make sure the system functions, sorry, that you are enslaved to the system. So I want to thank those who took the time out to be a part of this live broadcast tonight, this live stream on Facebook and also on YouTube. And to let you know, you can still share the live stream, share it, share this program tonight with your fellow brothers and sisters so they can get to comprehend. And next time when I'm on like tomorrow night, they'll be able to join in. So I want to say thank you very much. Stay safe and be careful. Sanitize yourself and wear a mask. Don't forget the little ones you take into public places. This is Dr. Matthews saying thank you. Black love to you all. And don't forget the drive that we talked about it last night. Call me, the number below the screen, and we'll be able to talk about it. Good night and Cheerios for now.